There's been a lot of talk around the Lakers lately. The team's been winning games while LeBron James has been out injured. It's created a real conversation around the league. Should LeBron come back and be less ball dominant? Should he scale back his role? Not because he's washed, but because it might unlock something new with the team. And the thing is, this isn't uncharted territory. Some of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball, Hall of Famers, MVPs, champions, all eventually reached a moment where they had to adjust. Not because they were bad, not because they couldn't play, but because the way they played had to evolve to the team to reach a higher level. And every time in NBA history that this has happened, it led to winning. Today we're going to look at some of the best examples of superstars who stepped back, shifted roles, and ended up elevating their teams to greatness. Wilt Chamberlain was a force that barely feels real today. Averaged 50 points and 25 rebounds in the season, led the league in scoring for 7 years, setting records that nobody ever came close to breaking. His early career was defined by dominance, but even with those numbers, championships were hard to come by. As the 1970s approached, Wilt was older. He'd had injuries and the Lakers kept falling short. The season before his change in role, he was still producing, but the team structures wasn't leading the rings. Then, Bill Sharman became the head coach, and he told him, "We don't need you to be the scoring Wilt anymore. We need defense, we need leadership, and we need rebounding. We need Bill Russell Wilt." That meant taking fewer shots, using the strength to screen, anchoring the defense, and sacrificing on offense. Somehow, Wilt agreed. The result, a 33-game win streak, the best record in NBA history at the time, and the 1972 NBA championship. Wilt stepped back, turned the Lakers into one of the most unstoppable teams ever assembled. Oscar Robertson's career before Milwaukee is legendary. He averaged a triple-double over a season, was one of the most efficient scorers ever, and had some of the best all-around seasons in the league had ever seen. He was the engine of the Cincinnati Royals for over a decade, but even with all that talent, the Royals weren't winning. The year before his role changed, Oscar was still elite, but carrying an offense that wasn't built to go anywhere. When he got traded to Milwaukee, he had to transform from a do-it-all superstar to a stabilizer next to a young Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He didn't need to dominate the ball anymore. He needed to organize the offense, hit timely shots, and pick his spots. Oscar accepted that new identity with zero ego, and once he did, Milwaukee became a juggernaut, and Oscar finally got that championship he'd been chasing his entire career. In his prime, Bill Walton was magical. He led Portland to a championship, won MVP, played both ends of the floor at an elite level. He was kind of Jokic before Jokic. But then injuries destroyed him. He barely played for years. The season before, Boston took a chance on him. He was seen as an unreliable and physically broken player. The Celtics didn't ask him to do the Portland MVP version of himself. They asked him to be the backup five who provides energy, passing, defense, and veteran IQ. And Walton, who could have fought it, fully embraced it. He ended up playing 80 games that season for the first time in his career, won Sixth Man of the Year, and helped Boston win the 1986 championship. An MVP winning Sixth Man of the Year is unheard of, but that's what buy-in looks like. Bob McAdoo was a pure bucket in his prime. He was a scoring champ, MVP, and one of the most gifted offensive big men ever. But as the 80s hit, his career went sideways. He was playing on losing teams, clashing with coaches, bouncing around the league, and trying to stay relevant. By the time the Lakers called him, he wasn't the MVP anymore. He was a talented scorer who needed a role. The Lakers told him, "We need you to be our bench scorer, not the franchise star." McAdoo bought in fully. He became a deadly second unit weapon and gave the Showtime Lakers an entirely new dimension. He helped them make 4 straight finals and win 2 of them. His sacrifice saved his career and elevated the dynasty. Clyde Drexler's prime was incredible. Multiple All-Star selections, deep playoff runs, and he carried Portland for years, even reaching the NBA Finals against Jordan. But the Blazers began to age and the team wasn't a contender anymore. When Houston traded for him, Drexler knew immediately he wouldn't be the guy anymore. Hakeem Olajuwon was already the best player in the world. Clyde didn't fight it. He embraced being the second option, slashing off ball, defending, picking his spots. That mindset helped fuel one of the greatest playoff runs ever, and Houston won the 1995 championship. Drexler finally got the ring that escaped him in Portland. David Robinson in his prime was unreal. The Admiral was an MVP, scoring champ, defensive player of the year. He was a prototype modern superstar center. But as the 90s closed, injuries began slowing him down. Then a young Tim Duncan arrived. Robertson realized quickly, this kid is the future. He played fewer minutes, took fewer shots, and focused on leadership, defense, and anchoring the team's culture. He didn't just accept Duncan becoming the centerpiece, he supported him. The reward? The Spurs won the 1999 title and again in 2003, Robinson's final season. His humility helped build the Spurs dynasty. Jason Kidd's peak was legendary. One of the greatest passers ever, a triple-double machine, elite defender, a pace-controlling mastermind. But by 2010, he wasn't the same athlete. Dallas didn't want him running the show like old times. They wanted a 3-and-D who kept the ball moving and played lockdown defense. That required Kidd to completely change the game. He improved his jump shot, he adjusted his pace, and he embraced being a role player instead of a superstar. And in the 2011 playoffs, that version of the Kidd was perfect. He was a critical part of the Mavericks title run, defending top perimeter players and hitting huge timely shots. Kidd reinvented himself, and that won the championship that had always stayed out of reach. Ray Allen was a top-tier scorer in Milwaukee and Seattle, one of the smoothest jump shooters we've ever seen, but also an underrated slasher and playmaker. But by 2008, joining Boston meant shifting into the third option behind Pierce and Garnett. No more 26-point nights, no more heavy ISOs. He became a floor spacer and an elite role player. He accepted it, and Boston became a title team instantly. Later in Miami, his role shrunk even more to just a pure shooter, and that role led to one of the biggest moments in NBA history, Ray Allen's clutch Game 6 shot in 2013 that saved Miami's season and led to a championship. Sometimes the smallest role leads to the biggest moment. Manu Ginóbili was good enough to be a 25-point-per-game all-star on almost any other team, but the Spurs needed him to come off the bench to balance their rotation. Popovich asked him to be the sixth man while he was still in his prime. Manu didn't love it, but he accepted it, and it turned into one of the greatest six-man ever. He became the spark plug that completed the Spurs dynasty, winning multiple championships and creating one of the most unselfish cultures in NBA history. In Toronto, Chris Bosh was a franchise superstar, 22-10, All-NBA, everything ran through him. But once he joined LeBron and Wade in Miami, his job changed completely. Instead of being a number one option, he became a stretch big, a defender, a switch helper, and a sacrifice king for the big three. His scoring dropped, his touches dropped, but the Heat don't reach 4 straight finals without Bosh playing that role. The Miami dynasty was powered by LeBron, but held together by Bosh. Andre Iguodala was an all-star, an elite defender, and multi-dimensional wing before joining the Warriors, but Steve Kerr asked him to come off the bench for the first time in his life. Iggy accepted it, and it changed the Warriors forever. He became the defensive stopper, the glue guy, the veteran voice. And when Golden State needed him the most in the finals, he stepped back into the starting lineup and won Finals MVP. A Finals MVP for a player who sacrificed his starting role. That tells you everything about his impact. Early in his career, Dwight Howard was unstoppable. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, elite rebounder, elite rim protector, and carried Orlando to the finals. But later in his career, his reputation took a bit of a hit. Teams viewed him as difficult and he bounced around the league. When he returned to the Lakers, they told him they didn't need superstar Dwight anymore. They needed defense, rebounds, energy, and effort. And Dwight embraced it. His defense and physicality were huge in the 2020 championship run. He rebuilt his reputation and finally got the ring he had chased for so long. Every example follows the same pattern. A superstar dominates an era, time passes, and eventually there comes a moment where the team needs them to adjust. The ones who accept it, the ones willing to shift, adapt, evolve, are the ones who win. Wilt did it, Oscar did it, Drexler did it, Robinson, Kidd, Ray Allen, Manu, Bosh, Iguodala, Dwight, they all did it. And each time, the team leveled up. The Lakers might be approaching one of these moments with LeBron. Not because he's not great anymore, but because the team may function differently with him in a slightly reduced, more efficient role. And if history tells us anything, when all-time greats choose sacrifice over control, championships usually follow.